So I want to start with maybe just talking about the article that you wrote for the Ferret.
Yeah.
So just if you could maybe just say what it was about kind of broadly.
Yeah, so basically I did an article for my website actually, and I got picked up by the Ferret because it was shared, and I don't know how they saw it, but they must have saw it somewhere.
Right,
So
okay.
repackage it for their website. But the gist of the article was really, I'd written a post, obviously after George Floyd, everyone was talking online, and I'd written a post just about my own experience. And then through speaking to other people, I noticed that other people were also writing posts, so they had the same experience. So I was just intrigued to see, not just within the Black community, but just in general in the ethnic community, how everyone's dealt with instances of racism or even just ignorance. So I just reached out to different people, a range of different people, men, women, and from different backgrounds as well, and just tried to see how they dealt with it, what they've been through. Is there a common theme here in the experiences that they were going through? And there was a lot of people went through really similar things to me. Some of it was a little bit more minor. Some of it, I mean, some people went through even worse than I had. And I think overall, I have been quite sheltered from a lot of racism in a way. So it was quite an eye-opener, to say the least. I think one of the interviewees, if you read it, one of the interviewees had rocks, thrown at his house, and his mum and dad called the N-word, and another person has had their stepdad had been headbutted in and he was white even, but just because he was Muslim, he was headbutted in a shopping centre, and just trying to bring all of those experiences together in one article, so it really hits home to people that this is a reality, and in Scotland and in England and the whole of the UK, this can happen. So,
What was what was the most shocking part of things you found out? Was it the rocks getting chucked at the head, or is there anything else?
Yeah, it was more the violence, because like I said, I've had little sort of how would you say it, like slag offs. I don't know how you would say it. I've had people throwing a little bit of shade at my hair, or saying things like that. I've never outright been called like the N-word or anything so bad, but even the other day, I mean, my mum was telling me, so I slightly off topic, my mum was telling me when I was younger, she used to get abuse shouted at her when I was in the pram, like when I was a toddler. And things like that, and people used to shout like, "Oh, BMW" at my mum and things like that, and just little things like that. But in the article, I would say, the most shocking thing was definitely, I would say, Joel and Shahida's experiences. Not to take away from anyone else's experiences, but the sheer violence and abuse that they had dealt with, I couldn't even fathom how I would have made it through that, to be honest. So yeah, definitely their experiences the most.
And so when we're talking about the UK, do you think we're, or even to Scotland as well, do you think we're almost ignorant about our racism? Because I think a lot of people maybe are surprised now to see how racist our country is. I mean, I think we were looking on to the US, and everything that's going on in the US is kind of like, wow, it's shocking there, without realising our own issues.
I definitely think in the UK, okay, yes, you have people who are outright racist, but I definitely think they're in the minority, shall we say. I think in the UK, it's more subliminal. So people make comments and maybe think, again, they're just slagging you off for having a joke, but it has racial undertones. And realistically, whether you mean to or not, you're still very much, you're picking on someone's race, you're using that as a dig. So whether you mean to be racist or not, you're still highlighting someone's skin color or race or abnormalities to benefit your joke or your agenda or whatever you're trying to do. So I definitely think in the UK, it's definitely more subliminal than maybe the US. We're not as a religious country either. I think sometimes, again, don't want to offend anybody, but I sometimes think religion plays a lot into that, and identity, nationality, things like that. So yeah, I would say more subliminal, definitely.
I think even with, like, I've been trying my best to think of this in the most straightforward way, and it just seems like if you look at someone who's being racist towards someone who is a different skin color to them, it's like saying, like if someone had blonde hair, it's the exact same as saying that. I mean, it's a characteristic that's no one chooses, no one's born with, and they don't choose to do that. And it's exactly that ridiculous that we could be just like being like hairist or something like that. I mean, it's the same thing. So you spoke about in the article the first time you realised that you were like quote unquote like, different. So what was that experience? How did that come about?
So that was funny, actually. I think my mum was making dinner, and it was back in the day where you would get like cold calls a lot at the house, you know, when people used to come and hand leaflets out. And there was a lot more of that back then. And that was when the British National Party was around, not so much UKIP, it was more the BNP. And I just remember, I think my mum must have been making dinner and the door went, and me being me and just being nosy, I like ran to the door and I was like, hello, how are you? And these men they seemed quite hesitant, but they were still really nice to me. I mean, you know, they were fine, but they said, oh, we're here from the British National Party. We're just here to talk to you about our campaign and what we're aiming to do and things like that. And my mum came like rushing through from the kitchen and she was like, we don't need, you know, your help. We don't need anything from you. And kind of threw their leaflets back at them and slammed the door. And I was like, well, why were you so rude? Like, you know, why were you so rude? And she was like, you don't know what they stand for. You're too young to understand like the ideology behind their political party. So I definitely think that was the first time she ever really had to sit down and actually explain that as you get older, you are going to see a lot of politics that doesn't represent you. It's important to find a political party that does represent you, and unfortunately not everybody does. Especially we're talking like late 90s, early 2000s, and I'm from Newcastle, so I come from a council estate. Back then it's a lot different to what it is now. Like I said, when I was in my pram, people used to shout, you know, just slurs at my mum in the mid-90s, kind of end of the 90s. So it's definitely come a long way, especially in Newcastle, for example. But at the same time, that was definitely the first time I think she had to sit and actually explain to me, you are a little bit different here. Like, you know, look around you. You know, there's not really many other people who look like you or have a skin color like you. But up until then, she'd never really done that before.
Yeah, I think it is important to maybe acknowledge that how far we have come, as well as acknowledging that there's still a long way to go. But do you think class plays an important role in this? Should we be concentrating on class? Because it seems like that's something that's not being spoken about a lot, and it maybe is something to be concentrated on. I mean, the amount of people of colour in the UK who are on the bottom end of the class system, do you think that's maybe somewhere to concentrate on?
No, because I've met people of both calibers. You know, I've met people who are on the lower end of the class system who are lovely people. My family, technically, if you look at, they do fit into those boxes. I mean, we come from a council estate, you know, my family have been on benefits at some point or universal credit. So you could technically say that my family are those people. So I don't like to generalize because I have only been brought up with my white working class family. I don't like generalizations as a person. I think I just try and take people as they come. I've met older people or say more upper class people who are equally as bad as people you find in, you know, on the lower spectrum. So I don't think we can generalize. I think that is a bit of a dangerous game to get into, because then you're holding people, a whole group accountable for something that might be more of an individual problem. Because I've met people of all different creeds, races, colours, ages, genders, who have all either, they can be non-racist or they can be racist. I mean, I don't think that it matters, to be honest, which group it is.
Do you think maybe there's a danger of like divisive groups, so like saying that this group of people are one thing, this group of people are another thing, and it's the kind of like almost like a competition like on each of these groups? Do you think that creates more friction, like with like in protests and stuff like that?
We just addressed this in a video I've just done actually, where I interviewed a few people, and they were all Black, from the Black community, and even they were saying, we need to stop holding everybody accountable for being racist. Like, not all white people are racist, not all Black people are criminals. We need to, as soon as we eradicate the generalization, I think that's when we see change. But if we're expecting everybody to be the same or have the same opinions or ideologies, to me, that's the opposite. That's not going to get us any closer to equality. That's just going to keep us, like you're saying, in this friction state and opposition state. So I definitely think that, yeah, we need to just drop the generalizations, to be honest. I don't think it helps. I think you just got to treat people as individuals, try and educate them where you can about your culture, about what you do, about who you are, and obviously try and collaborate that with the rest of society, however you can. But try not to generalize, I would say.
Yeah. And so the protests in the US, do you think what's being done in the US is correct, the protests? So there's looting, which the media tend to cover the looting and most of the violence more than they cover the 95% that are peacefully protesting. But do you think the looting or like destruction of property, do you think is that making people in power listen, or is it doing the opposite and showing them in a negative light?
I wouldn't say the looting is doing much to influence it either way. Again, I could be wrong. I don't have statistics in front of me. I wouldn't say the looting. I don't even think, some Black or ethnic people agree with looting. It doesn't, the generalization that everybody is doing that, which the media push quite a lot. They make it seem like everybody in London was looting, when that just isn't the case. So I don't know whether that specifically is making the change. I definitely think the movement itself is making the change, and it's making people maybe question their own prejudices, or, kind of making people question instances where maybe they have been racist or have not meant to say anything. I definitely think education starts at home. So if people can reflect, I think the reflection and the movement itself is making everybody, whether you're on a lower level of the scale or a higher level, say corporate or in the government or media, I think it is making everybody question how they report on things, what they've said in the past, the government, on how they can be more inclusive. But how long that'll take to see change, I guess it's up to us as well to get ourselves in these jobs and in these roles and use our voice for more than just looting and being out on the streets causing riots. But again, that's not everybody. So it'll definitely take a while, like anything does, to see change. But I think as long as people keep on talking about it and educating, I'm sure for the next generation, like when we have children, I'm sure, not me and you, but I'm sure when our children get older, hopefully they can look back and see that there was change from even when we were younger. So everything takes time, I think.
Yeah, speaking about like the corporations, you see that, I think it's Twitter, that are banning words like master. There was other companies that are banning master bedroom and slavery, stuff like that you can't use. Do you think that just seems to me like, if it is a good step, it's an extremely small one, and it might even be going the other side and having the opposite effect?
I just think if these companies cared before, then they would have cared before,
Yeah.
If they actually cared about these words, why did it take someone dying or a whole movement for you to understand that? I think there's a fine line between representing people and jumping on a bandwagon, and to me, removing TV shows and words, are we just moving towards lack of freedom of speech? You could argue that as well, that you cannot prohibit simple words like master bedroom, even slavery, because that is a part of our history. But we can't change that. We can't change the fact that Peep Show used blackface in 2009. But what we can do is we can educate people and say, well, that's not okay now, and instead of removing things. And I think we've just got to be careful that we're not heading into kind of a nanny state where absolutely everything we're doing is being monitored, because I don't think anybody would want that. Maybe the reality sounds better than what it would be if that did actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, that moves into the kind of the cancel culture we've got now, where if
Mm.
someone said something 10 years ago, or even when they were a kid, and they're getting cancelled, their shows are getting cancelled, or they're getting a lot of like
Mm.
pushback on it. And I think the thing I think is ironic is it tends to be people on the far left that notice these things, and
Yeah.
it's a small percent on Twitter that push it out. And
Yeah.
the ironic thing is that these people are the ones that are for rehabilitation, like redemption, stuff like that for prisoners. So if
Mm.
someone's like murdered someone, they believe that it should be rehabilitation rather than punishment. But if someone had
Mhm.
said something offensive 10 years ago, they're cancelled. They don't get any redemption. It's just such a irony there.
I think it's very hypocritical because I think we could all look at our old Instagrams or Twitters or Facebooks, Bebo back when we were younger. I think we could all look at that and probably see something like we said that's offensive in
Yeah.
today's, like just like, the N word was acceptable 100, 200 years ago, it's not now. I'm sure things that we've said, not that excuses it, but if somebody,
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of cancel culture anyway. I'm a big fan of letting people explain themselves and let's talk it through. Let's understand
Yeah.
why you said that. Let me re-educate you. But to ruin someone's life and livelihood, I mean, you've got to balance the scales because then if someone lost their job and went into debt and had no money and wasn't
Yeah.
allowed to make better content that served today's society, then then the depression rate's going to go up. You've
Yeah.
got to watch with and then people will be saying, well, depression and mental health is so bad now, but maybe it's the pressure of not being able to express yourself or feel it. Even me, sometimes doing journalism, sometimes I feel like I can't put what I want to say on Twitter because I'm like,
Yeah.
well, if an employer says that, I might not get a job. So even I feel gagged sometimes to put my opinion across, in fear that someone would be like, cancel her, and
Yeah, I mean that worries me too. Like before like filming and stuff like that, I get so worried that I'm going to say because I'm trying to like do
mm-hmm,
something at least be a bit open minded and where things
same.
can be said and like try not to worry too much. But I'm so afraid that if I'm going to say the wrong thing, or I'm going to offend someone or something like that. But I think the thing with that is like everything the things I say, I'm not 100% behind. So if someone was to say what you've said is wrong, I'm not going to. And if that seems to be the case, I'm not standing behind my argument. I will say things that are wrong or stuff like, or I might even say something that's offensive 10 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
which is what's happening now. So we talked about looting. So what about in the UK with tearing statues down? What do you think about that?
Leave them up. I mean, it
Yeah, agreed.
doesn't affect my life. Again, nobody has noticed this until how many of us walked past St Andrew's Square in Edinburgh and have
Yeah.
ever brought up the fact that it's been detrimental to our mental health? I completely respect people that do want it taken down, but I just feel like it'd be a lot more beneficial to put plaques on the
Yeah.
statues, like Sir Jeff Palmer has been proposing, like put plaques on the statues. Let's discuss it. Let's educate the youth.
Mhm.
Again, and something a bit of work I've just done with the Black community recently, they were also saying that as well. Like, let's acknowledge the past, but let's talk about all the great things that we can do moving forward. I don't think taking down a statue is someone who died 200, 300 years ago who can't apologise now, they can't explain themselves.
Yeah.
Not that that would need explaining, it's wrong to enslave people, obviously, but at the end of the day, they can't speak now. We can't hold them accountable. So put that energy into moving forward and thinking, right, what can we put in place so that kids will be educated now? And that again, in the future, children and our age group and anyone else really can look back and say, okay, well, that's what we have now and this is how far we've come.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that another solution would be putting that into like the school curriculum? Because I can remember in history, high school, I mean, we learned about the American slave trade and stuff like that, but we didn't learn much about stuff like that in the UK or the way that Britain was founded and stuff like that, and the like colonialization of all different countries and stuff like that. I didn't learn that in high school. Do you think that's maybe something we should be learning?
Oh, 100%. But yeah, 100%. I definitely think we need to understand how Britain has been formed. the reality of what they've done to other countries. You barely hear about, literally, you don't hear about, or specifically rather, you don't hear about the countries that they actually colonized. You don't hear much about what they did in those countries. So I would definitely say yes, put it in the curriculum. But also don't focus too much on the negative, because again, that can create negative stereotypes in itself. You know, like white people are more superior and black people are, you know, just forever more victims of the white man, you know, or the white woman. And I think you've got to watch with that, because if you're teaching kids, well, we were tough, strong Britain that went in and conquered all these black people, that in itself can create stereotypes. So I think a good healthy mix of past instances, but also mix that with black and ethnic people who have achieved great things, who have invented, you know, products or been involved in scientific developments. Just make sure it's a balance. And again, not all doom and gloom or poor black people, because we're not, well, obviously I have to be careful the way I word this, but obviously people have been victimized. But we're just as strong as anybody else, you know, like we're just as intelligent as anybody else. So, and a lot of people have achieved great things. So I just think create that balance. And I think that should be implemented 100%. I mean, I think all culture as much as possible should be implemented in the school curriculum.
And what about, we're talking about cancel culture, what about culture appropriation? So people up in arms about people wearing like Native American headdresses or white people with dreadlocks. Do you think that is culture appropriation, or do you think the intent's important in there? Is it more culture appreciation? Because it doesn't seem to me like the intention is to be offensive.
It's a hard one. Like, I can see where people are coming from, because, you know, I think as an example, when a black woman wears a blonde weave, you know, everyone's like, oh my God, she's got bleach blonde hair that, you know, it totally doesn't suit her. But then why can't she wear that? And a white woman can wear blonde braids, you know, like, why is that so shocking? However, imitation is a serious form of flattery, right? So if I was to dress up as Pocahontas for Halloween, or even just an event where there's fancy dress or anything like that, it wouldn't be because I'm trying to culturally appropriate it. I think it would be more that, again, maybe appreciation. Like, I like Pocahontas, I think she's beautiful, like I want to emulate that. So if we take that away as well, and people are too scared to kind of emulate or be inspired by other races, then is that not the opposite of what we're trying to do? So I think you just got to be careful. Do I think, obviously, you have people who maybe try too hard to emulate black culture? Yes, in instances there can be those people, but in terms of fake tan, I don't care, you know, like, everyone loves a tan. So if you want a tan, have one. Braids, I don't really care, because, you know, I've worn straight extensions before. What's the difference when you think about it, literally? Obviously, not everyone feels that way, and I totally respect that. But I think we're focusing too much on the little things rather than the things that are really going to make change.
What do you think will make change? I mean, obviously it has to be something radical, but do you think the protests, what do you think the main goal of the protests are? Like, what's the route map that they're thinking?
See, I've been thinking about this lately, and I'm a bit concerned that people don't really know what the end goal is. You know, there's a lot of shouting, but there's not many solutions. So, you know, what is the end goal? What do you want to see? Like, let's stop focusing on the girl on Instagram who we don't know who's wearing braids or fake tan, and if she wants to do that, just, you don't have to look at it, you know, you don't have to see it. Give me something, or give us something, a plan, like go into schools, you know, educate the kids on racism, like get up, do something. I think it's very easy for all of us now to sit on our phones and tweet and not really actually get up and go out and do anything. I definitely think education's the first step to anything you've got to learn, right? So I think educate the youth, educate ourselves, make sure our children are properly educated on not to be racist to people and to respect people's differences. But what I want to see is less generalization. Remove these color stereotypes, even like black, you are white. Why can't we celebrate our own culture the way that we want to, in the way that we feel appropriate? You know, instead of saying, well, you are black, you are white, you are this, you are that. Why can't we just be people? And then I can say when I think it's necessary to tell you about where I'm from or my heritage. Why do I need to label myself? So I think education, dropping the labels and generalizations and stereotypes, and also more encouragement to inspire kids to get into politics, to get into the media, to get into other rote science, to, you know, set those degrees. Obviously in Scotland we're very fortunate that we have free university education. England aren't so lucky. So I understand that's not also maybe logical for people who maybe live in London and the poorest parts of London and places like that. But let's make it easier for kids to go into that. I don't think there's enough encouragement in schools anyway towards children. And I'd like to see teachers and things like that maybe encouraging kids a little bit more to follow their dreams and to be whatever they want to be, rather than, again, telling the kid that's slightly restless in school that he's never going to go anywhere. If you tell them that many times, then they're going to believe it.
Yeah.
So what do you want them to do? If you tell the black kid in school that all he's ever going to be is a drug dealer, then he will go and be a drug dealer. What are his talents? What is his passions? And then I think from there, get kids into those roles, a mixture of kids, black, white, ethnic, mix, anything, Asian, get them into these schools, and then I think we'll see proper change. But again, it's going to take maybe 25 years before we really get that balance. But I think right now we're just out of balance. Society is completely out of balance.
And with diversity, how important do you think it should be to focus on having a diverse workforce? Because I fear that we focus so much on diversity that we're looking at equality of outcome rather than equality of opportunity. So if you focus so much on having the exact same number of black people, white people, women, disabled people, where do you start to draw the line? And is the best person for the job getting it? Whereas if you work for equality of opportunity, it means everyone's got an equal chance, but not everyone gets the same outcome. Do you think that? Do you think that that's better than equality of outcome?
I mean, it's a difficult one. I do think I always use the example of South Africa. So obviously we all know South Africa, apartheid, what happened there. Obviously, I was in a job, for a journalism job, and I worked in like the energy journalism sector, and I came across a story that I had to proofread and repackage. And it was basically saying that in South Africa, there was this energy company who offered black employees only 20% off their energy bill every month. But then the white employees were like, well, hang on a minute, you know, what about us? So we have to pay full price, because it's all trying to, which is great, and it's all trying to make up for the past, which on one hand is great, acknowledge the wrongdoings. But on the other hand, now in South Africa, there was a protest because they're claiming white apartheid. So where do we draw the line, and where do we find the equal in that, right? So I do think having diverse schemes is good. I work for an employer who's very diverse, and they're getting better and better and better the more that I work there. But let's not, again, see ethnic people as numbers. Like, we're people. I don't understand why, again, it's another way of generalizing one culture or one group of people. I think if we just eradicate these stereotypes and stop seeing colour completely, that's the way towards inclusivity, rather than, you know, kind of saying, well, okay, we'll have 5 black employees and 2 white employees, or 10 white employees and 2 black employees, because then it just becomes, again, you kind of feel like you're just there as a token, where I want to be there because I know that you want me there, not because you're just trying to tick a box or a quota. But again, I know that's not everyone's opinion. I can only speak for my opinion, but I just don't want to be used as a number. I want you to appreciate my talent and what I can bring to the role.
So maybe the solution there was, I can't remember what company were doing it, but so every applicant, there was no names. So they found that people, if they were seeing a name that was say, like foreign sounding, that person wouldn't get the job just by their name before the interview. So if you get rid of names, and everyone's got an equal opportunity at least before the interviewing process. So what do you think of defunding the police in America? Do you think that's a good idea? I'm struggling with what it means. I think calling it defunding the police basically means that you're getting rid of the police system, when really that's not the intention.
The way I've seen it described online, I don't agree with defunding the police, first of all, because then what would we do? That just because there's, if you take police away, there's still going to be crime. That's never going to change. So the way I've seen it described online is people are saying that it's not so much defunding the police, but it's taking some of the funding and putting it into Black education, Black schooling, sports schemes, things like that. My worry is, again, we're overlooking the point of what's happened. It wasn't the money that killed George Floyd, it's the training. So you need that funding to retrain the police. It wasn't the literal dollar bills that killed George Floyd. It was the training of the police force. And until we address the training of the police force, nothing's going to change, because that is the root of the issue, and you've got to start from the root and work your way up. So no, I don't agree with defunding the police. I think put that money into making sure that the government, like Donald Trump and the Republicans or whoever gets in next, really puts that money towards taking even more of a British approach. Not saying that we're perfect, but I think more of a British approach to how they deal with criminals. I did see, I think it was Donald Trump is starting to look at, not a Trump fan by any means, but I think he is starting to look at ways where they can use less force and retrain the police. And I think they're looking at developing kind of non-fatal firearms, so maybe rubber bullets or things like that. So it's a step in the right direction, but to do that, they need funding to get those tested and, safeguarded. They need funding. So I don't believe in defunding the police entirely, if that's what people mean. If people are talking about the funding, I think, yes, maybe if they're overfunded, maybe take some of that and implement it in other schemes. But to defund the police, that's very idealistic, because as soon as something really bad happens, people will be going, well, where were the police? Where were the police? So we've just got to be logical. We really do. I'm in complete support of the movement. I'm mixed race, proudly. Completely empathise that I'm a lot more privileged than a lot of people have been, especially in the UK. But we need to look at this objectively and take our own feelings out of it a little bit and think a little bit more laterally and in kind of government terms. How is this going to work in society? Because we are a society. So, I wouldn't say defund the police.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of
sorry,
no, that's good. In terms of trends, do you think the hashtagging the Blackout Tuesday, do you think that's a positive thing? Because I think it is a very positive thing, and I think trends work. That's why they're trends, that they have we've gotten people speaking. But there's certain negatives where people use it disingenuinely because it's a trend, or people attacking people who didn't get the memo that Blackout Tuesday was happening, and maybe they posted a picture of their food or something like that, and people get offended. I think it was Emma Watson done that. She had posted something and people were attacking her, calling her a racist. So do you think trends, the goods outweighs the bad in that sense?
Do you know, I was in full support of other people doing it, but funnily enough, I didn't do it. I didn't put the black square, but I was in full support of people doing that because that was at the very initial stages. And I think, like you're saying, it was really building momentum at that point. So for millions of people to get in on that was great, because it meant that people were listening and they were participating and they were starting to understand what the movement was all about. I think that's great. Disingenuous, I mean, the only time I would find that a little bit disingenuous, I would say, is when people would post the black square and you've not heard anything from them since.
Yeah.
You know, there's been no conversation from them since. What's the point? You know, like, I would rather you just say you don't know enough about it, or you were only supporting for that one day, than pretending you're really into it. I don't know. I think people can do what they want. If they want to post a black square, great. I definitely think celebrities, but you should do it from a, sorry to edit this out because I'm waffling a bit. It's a hard one. It's a hard one. I didn't personally put black square because I want to do more work where I'm doing like videos or I'm doing articles, and that's my way of raising awareness for things. I get not everybody has that access or ability, and you know, that's fine, or they work in something completely different, and that's okay. So maybe social media is the way that they express themselves, and that's what it's for. The black squares, again, I was really happy to see people were doing it, but the people who haven't really said much else, I think, don't just jump on a bandwagon. Like, ask questions to your ethnic friend, phone them up, you know, like, have a conversation. But again, we cannot police everyone's life. It's not fair for our own mental sanity, and it's not really fair to other people to put that constant pressure on people either. As long as someone's not racist and they're asking me questions and they're interested about my culture, or not that I have much, I'm a Geordie, but you know, they're interested in drinking. You're interested in my culture. I think I can't really ask much more of people, you know.
I think one of the most helpful things for me was the people sharing articles, sharing information, because you'd click on that, you'd have a quick read of it, and that's something that you wouldn't have known before. And also having conversations with people where non-judgmental spaces, where anything you say that might be out of ignorance or might be termed offensive, you're not going to get shut down for it. What I'll say now is also, if you got any, are you hopeful for the future? Are you optimistic about it?
Yes, but I definitely think we need to do more than just sitting online. I honestly do. I think online's great, but then put that energy, like I said again, into actually, when I say educating yourself, get into those jobs, get into parliament, get into the media, get into science, get into speaking, anything that you can do that you enjoy, that's going to drive change forward. Because I think a lot of my friends, I'm really proud of them, they've been black, white, mixed, ethnic, they've all been posting things on Instagram, and that's great, but where do we see these posts once the 24-hour story is up? Where do we see those posts? Who's going to remember what you've written on your stories? And again, people can only do so much. So I think we need to maybe not pressure ourselves either to do too much. I think one friend I had, she was like, I've just taken a break. She's like, I can't be a good ally if I'm exhausted. I can't be a good ally if I'm, you know, tired out. So I definitely think don't put too much pressure on yourself or others, but try and do as much as you can, whether that's putting your own insecurities or lack of confidence aside and going into schools, and even just talking to a group of teachers or kids, anything that you can think of that you can do to drive it forward. I'm optimistic, but at the moment, I'm failing to see, I don't think anyone really knows what the end goal is. Like, is the end goal that we have no police? You know, we disadvantage another group of people to benefit one group, and then that's not equality. No one can joke anymore. No one can watch Peep Show anymore on Netflix, or, you know, is that, I know I keep bringing up Peep Show, I'm a fan, I'm like, no, not Peep Show, but, you know, I think we just have to watch that we're not, like I said earlier, that we're not putting too much wasted energy into things that realistically don't matter. And forfeiting the energy that we could be putting into to making our voices heard in a more productive way, like speaking to an MP, you know, making petitions. There's so many other things that we could be doing. But I do think social media is really important. So like I said, I'm really happy to see a lot of my friends, whatever race, are really going hard on social media, and I think that's great. Because that is ultimately how we're going to educate people and see change. We live in a social media world, especially with COVID. So that's all we can do right now, really, is educate through the internet. So I think it's good, but I am optimistic. But again, like anything, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, I think it's also important, I think, for people who watch news, or for people maybe to start realizing what news sources they watch, and maybe start like widening it a bit, and maybe if they're looking at predominantly left-leaning newspaper, maybe start looking at the right and just see what the conversation is on the other side, and then you can see how they're thinking, and don't if someone says something that seems slightly conservative, don't call them a Tory and then shut them down, because it makes people embarrassed to speak about anything if they're worried about being called a Tory, even if they are conservative. People will hide that if we're going to shut them down for saying those things.
Funny, I love when I'm thinking of things and then people talk about it and it kind of confirms what I'm thinking. Like I'm very much, I like to call myself a centrist. I'm very much centre-fold now, because there's some things I take from the left and I think, you're completely right, and then there's other things I take from the right. And one thing I think a lot of males say to me is that they're like, you can actually listen to my opinion. Maybe males who are slightly more right-leaning, they're like, oh my God, I didn't think that you would appreciate my opinion. I thought you would shout at me and be angry at me. And I'm like, well, no, because I don't have to agree with you, but maybe something I say will make you think, and maybe something you say will make me think. And then through that, we can collaborate our ideas rather than me just dismissing you completely. And then that means that I'm not widening my approach. I'm not widening my mindset. If I just think that I'm right all the time, then I'm never going to learn, and I'm not going to listen to other people. So I think it is really important. You don't have to agree with people, but you can respect why someone's came to that opinion, because everyone, really, you come to conclusions based on your own life experience, the research you've done, things you've read, but a lot of it is about experience, which forms I think I'm going to totally steal this from my interview I did with someone else the other day, but I think my interviewee said, how you see yourself is how you see the rest of the world. But as long as you're allowing people to teach you new things, I think you've got to keep an open mind, because what do they say? The black man has more in common with the working class man than he does the elite, which is so true. So we can't just dismiss people, because otherwise, we will never find a common ground if we're unwilling to hear each other's points of view.
I think it seems to be predominantly like the left are shutting down people on the right, and I just think that's it's not helping anything if you're going to start reinforcing your kind of echo chamber thing. Everything you say or everything you think is being reinforced by whatever you read. So widen that circle, speak to people from different viewpoints, and you might change, and try and be open-minded to change your mind. Because a lot of people are so unwilling to change their mind that they just dismiss everything, even if it might prove what they've been thinking is wrong.
And I can guarantee that somewhere along the line you'll agree with something.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, but you have to be willing to have that conversation with people. But like I said, I can guarantee if you spoke to somebody who, say, you're really left-leaning, and you spoke to someone who's a little bit more right-leaning or really right-leaning, I can guarantee that you'll have something at some point in common, whether that's a life circumstance or a viewpoint or, the way you've been treated at some point, whatever it may be. I'm sure you'll have, and also the definition of left and right has definitely changed. But that's a different conversation, but it's definitely changed. So I think we need to maybe have a new political party. A more centre-fold. I don't know, a more centre-fold that speaks for everybody. I don't know how it'll look. Again, change is going to take time.
Yeah, annoyingly, I think that the in my last episode it was on drug policy, and one of the people I interviewed was an activist, and he was basically conveyed how annoyingly slow it takes. Like, he's so frustrated at how slow this sort of change takes. I mean how long have we been talking about race and we're still not there yet, and it just must be very frustrating for people who are living that experience, especially in America as well.
Yeah, definitely. But then I'm sure, again, the next generation are going to have maybe other issues that they're dealing with, whether that's nuclear war or I don't know, something else, you know, like I'm sure they're going to have things that might see change, the change that we wanted. And that's just the law of life, unfortunately. It's all to balance it out. So I think we'll get there. I'm optimistic. I think we will get there. But yeah, it's just going to take a bit of time. I think I said that like 20 times, but it's another day. What will be, will be, but we can drive change forward, definitely.
Yeah. That's a good place to end, an optimistic place to end at least. So yeah, where can people follow you, stay updated on what you're doing, see your projects, stuff like that?
So I have a website, oliviaotigbah.com. So that's Otigbah. I thought I might just spell it because no one can. So it's just oliviaotigbah.com, www.oliviaotigbah.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Olivia Otigbah, and then Twitter at Olivia Otigbah as well. So if you give me a follow, I do follow back. So yeah, and you can find my articles on my website, and my videos are on YouTube and things like that. So
well, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me.